You do not have to be in the dark anymore. Up to this point, your doctor has told you Crohn's and colitis is a mystery, there's no cause, it's unpredictable, and you're stuck with this wavering back and forth or just barely managing flares and symptoms for the rest of your life. But it's not true. This episode is all about the signs, symptoms, flares, and reversal of IBD. And by the time you finish this episode, you're going to know why you got IBD in the first place and how it develops. You're going to know what causes you to flare and how to know if you're in a flare and if one might be coming on. We're going to walk through these early prediction signs because we're giving you the control back over your digestive system so it doesn't have to continue to control you. And ultimately, we will be going over how to reverse IBD. Now, I'm really excited to bring you this episode because there's so much mystery around it. Why do I get sick? How does it happen? And your doctor makes it sound impossible, but it doesn't have to be that way. And I'm here to show you the hard proof. I'm so excited to share this with you. Let's just get it started. Contrary to what your doctors told you, Crohn's and colitis are reversible. Now, I've helped hundreds of people reverse their bowel disease, and I'm here to help you do it too, because inflammation always has a root cause. We just have to find it. This is the Reversing Crohn's and Colitis Naturally podcast. Now, I do these live trainings in my Facebook group every single week and put the audios here for you to listen to. If you want to watch the video versions of these episodes, just click the link in the show notes to get access to our Facebook group and YouTube channel. And for weekly updates, information, tips, and tricks, you can sign up for our email list by clicking the link in the show notes below. Now, if you don't know me already, I do want to introduce myself. My name is Josh Deck. I'm an IBD specialist, medical lecturer, and physician's consultant for Crohn's and colitis, and even severe IBS. And my team and I have helped hundreds of people now fully reverse their IBD, come off medications, because as it turns out, most cases are not autoimmune, and yours too can be reversed. And I'm going to show you how that can be done inside this episode. So we're going to get started right off the hop here. I might get into the habit of actually starting every episode just like this with some stats to prove to you that IBD can be reversed. If you were here last week, this will sound familiar, so hang tight. If you're new, you need to know this because nobody has told you this yet. And I'm going to tell you for the first time right here, okay? This is going to summarize everything you need to know about IBD. So number one, your doctor has told you IBD is autoimmune. It's happening. There's nothing we can do. Your body's fighting your own tissues. They told you that it's an unknown cause. The word they'll use might be idiopathic, and then of course that it's genetic. Now, these three things are not true, and I'm going to tell you how in about 2 minutes or less why these are not true as a quick summary. Number one, less than 50% of all cases of Crohn's and colitis have any antibodies at all, which is the requirement for it to truly be autoimmune. And even those who do have antibodies, it's more likely, in my experience, that your body is actually creating them for another reason. Now, I've actually created this chart here. It's part of a video. I'd be happy to send you all the antibodies that are produced, the most common ones from Crohn's and colitis. I'll hold it nice and close to the camera here. Now, down here are all the antibodies that are produced. Over here are the percentages. So you can see 70%, some are pretty high. But my little yellow boxes are all the information. I'll show it to the other camera here. These are all the things that can also cause those antibodies. I'll give you a couple of them. Medications, mesalamine, azathioprine, Imuran, the drugs they actually use to treat IBD can cause those same antibodies. Antibiotics, candida, E. coli, parasites, medications, stress, all these things can also cause antibodies. And so even with that, less than 50% of cases actually have any antibodies. Therefore, you can't always be autoimmune. The second one is to say it's unknown cause. Well, if it's unknown, we've seen cases in 1990 go from about 3 million, just really depends on what you look at, to about 7 to 8 million today. So there's something has to be causing it in the last 35 years. And for it to just be genetic, North America is less than 5% of the global population, but they have more than 50% of the world's cases of bowel disease. So your doctor has told you it's autoimmune, there's no known cause, and it's just genetic. We just broke those three legs of that table immediately. Most cases don't actually have any antibodies, and if they do, many other things can cause them. The next one is that cases are climbing rapidly over the last 30 years, so something is causing it. The last one can't just be genetic because less than 5% of the globe has more than 50%, up to 60%, depends on the studies, of these diseases. So that's number one, okay? So I want you to understand that IBD is a very reversible condition. I might start getting in the habit of repeating these stats every single time we do one of these because I want you to know this through and through and bring this to your doctor and say, hey man, this doesn't make sense. So let's talk about the next one. Why do we get IBD? I want to talk to you about something called dysbiosis. This maybe is something that you've heard about before. The word dysbiosis, we're going to dive into it more than just the general terminology. The word dysbiosis just means imbalanced gut bacteria. And you have it. I have it. All of us have it. This is why North America is so sick. In fact, 60 to 70% of all North Americans complain of having some kind of GI symptom. Gas, bloat, pain, constipation, diarrhea, acid reflux at least once a week, which is crazy. And then we have more than almost 5% of all North Americans here, or these cases rather. I think it's 465 out of 100,000 people have IBD in North America or have that diagnosis in their purview. So it's pretty shocking what's happening when it used to be, 15 out of 100,000 back 75 years ago. So it is growing quite a lot. And so let's talk about the growth trends. Let's go back to great-great-grandma. Let's talk about how we get the state of dysbiosis. Because the argument now is that it's not your body attacking your organs, your colon, your intestines. It's actually your body attacking your microbiome because there's things in there that should not be. So let's talk about this. Healthy gut bacteria. You have got a nice castle. This is your inside, this is your body. All around it you have this moat. This moat, it's a moat full of fire and water. And this is going to keep all the bad guys at bay. This is your gut bacteria. It's full, it's robust, it's healthy. The fuller the moat, the more the bad guys you keep at bay. The challenge that we see now, though, is that over the years, as this house gets passed on to your great-grandmother, to your grandmother, to you, that moat starts to dry up. And now invaders can enter the castle, and there's nothing really stopping them from coming in. And so let's look at this for nice round numbers, make it easy just to sort of math this one out. Let's say great-great-grandmother had 1,000 microbes. That's the best gut you can possibly have. She's got all the microbes, all the diversity. She's very healthy. There's no toxins, no chemicals. There's no artificial foods and sweeteners and junk that's destroying her gut bacteria. But as we go on to the years, we get more and more of it in her system. So grandma gives birth to your mom, who gets 800 microbes, who gives birth, let's say great-great-grandmother to great-grandma to grandma, who gets 6, to your mom, who gets 400, and now you're born, you've got 200 microbes. Look how dry the moat is getting. Look how many invaders are entering your body. So we have this dysbiosis. So not only do we have less microbes, we have less of the good guys, the guys that should be keeping things at bay. So what starts to happen? Well, the bad guys, the invaders, come in and take residence inside the castle, inside of your gut. They start to cause a problem because they shouldn't be there. These are called opportunistic microbes. These are going to be your E. coli's, your Clostridia, your parasites, your fungi, a lot of things that maybe they exist in a healthy state inside your gut, but they're there in abundance and now they're causing a problem. And so as we inherit this dysbiosis with a more toxic world with less proper food, proper nutrition, we start to get sicker and sicker and sicker. Invaders come in and now we have a problem. And this is ultimately how we end up getting Crohn's or colitis. And so I drew this Venn diagram on a live a while back. I want to bring you up to speed on this one. There are 3 main reasons why we get IBD, okay? And so I'm just going to put Crohn's and colitis in the middle here. But let's take a look at this. The 3 main reasons we get them. The number 1 is going to be toxins. So toxins are what's creating the damage. That's what's destroying our gut bacteria, creating the state of dysbiosis over time. It's inherited. We know your microbes are inherited. And so we can see that in that development. So toxins, the more we get in our ecosystem, the more we get in our life and our world, is arguably up to 100,000 in the last 100 years added to our world, most in our food supply. And this is why we're getting sicker and sicker, which leads to, I'm just going to put microbial IMB for imbalances. This is that dysbiosis, less and less microbes coming in, which allows bad guys to come in and overgrow. We have too much of the bad, not enough good. Microbial imbalances is dysbiosis. The next one I'm going to put in here is just going to be diet and nutrients. There was a study back from the University of Texas in 2008 that actually suggested you would need up to 8 oranges to get the same nutrient levels that your great-great-grandmother would in 1 orange back when she had all the microbes. Now we have even less. We're not even getting the right food. We're also toxifying, but not getting the nourishment, nutrients we need. On top of that, 60 to 80% of the standard American diet is something from a bag or a microwave or a box or a drive-through, which further feeds these problems. And so we have toxins coming in. which contributes to nutrient issues, which contributes to imbalances and vice versa. And these microbes also create more toxins and burn up the nutrient sources you have. This is sort of a simplified version. It does get deeper than this to fill these guys in, but we're going to leave it here for now. This is how we get IBD. And so the question now is, when we have all this going on and all this is coming into the body, the castle's filling up, what causes you to flare? Because now we see how IBD can develop. We've seen the growth of it. In 1950, there was approximately, I believe it was 15 out of 100,000 people had a diagnosis of Crohn's or colitis. In the 1970s, it was something like 25 to 50 per 100,000. Take that to the 90s, we are now something like 150 to 250. And then today, it's about 465 per 100,000. So we're seeing exponential growth of these numbers over the last 75 years. And so let's talk about what makes you flare. Because now that we're seeing this trend, this growth, guess what? The castle's filling up. So let's talk about this. Let's change analogies here for visual. Let's talk about your body like a glass of water. This is where we flare. So you got this nice big glass of water. Now, unlike a traditional glass, it doesn't fill in and come back out. It fills in the top and it drains out the bottom. That's how this glass is going to work. This is your body. It comes in this way and goes out that way. Ta-da. And so what we're going to look at, consider that there's toxins coming into your body. They're filling your glass, right? They're entering in. So you have a stressful day. You have microbial imbalances creating all these toxins inside your body. You have candida and parasites and fungi and other things creating more toxins for your body. Now, normally a healthy body is going to drain these out. Your microbes are a huge part of that drainage process. Maybe you get sick, you have the flu. Maybe your cup's super full from all these different things. It could be environmental toxins, smoking, drinking, alcohol, whatever it is. But think about this a minute. Your cup gets so full and you're constantly here. You're living your life at this full cup stage. And then one day you get the flu or you have a stressful day and boom, you flare. Why? Because that was just the bit of water you needed to cause your cup to overflow, and now we have a flare. But you've got symptoms this entire time. Typically what will happen is your doctor won't even say, well, it's IBS, it's who knows, take this, take that drug, bowels are too fast, let's speed them up, bowels are too slow, let's speed them up rather, too fast, we slow them down, here's a medication to manage symptoms. But we're managing your symptoms till that glass overflows, and then we have enough water to call it a disease process. And so what happens when you're in a flare is the same thing happens. You're already in a disease now, but the problem is your cup is filling up, but it's not draining out the bottom. And this is why we flare. It's too much inside the cup. Now, everyone's got a different size of cup. Your cup might be smaller or larger than my cup. Your cup might drain better or worse than my cup. So we have to ask ourselves, what's causing the cup to overflow and what is preventing it from draining? If we can understand this, then we can know why you come into flares. Now, let's talk about the cup. So if we know your cup is overflowing, this is how we flare, this is how diseases happen, disease comes on. Can it be predicted? Well, we know that stress, that toxins, that recirculated air, so indoor air is one of the top pollutants for human beings, so open your windows. Overreactive microbes, cycling, like parasites, for example, have life cycles. If you're someone who has a predictable cycle of flares and remission every few weeks or once a month or seasonally, it's coming up and down. There are seasonal affective things, not seasonal affective disorder, but there are seasonal things that can affect you. It can be parasite life cycles. It can be maybe your cup is already nearly full and then it's the pollen in the air, snow mold or something that causes you just to overflow and now you're in a flare. These are predictable things. Our job is to figure out what has filled your glass, number one, but two, why isn't it draining out the bottom? Three, what's gotten wet? That needs to be repaired as well. So I want to talk about how a flare may come on, because flares, they're no fun. Flares can be anywhere from a couple extra bowel movements a day and some fatigue. A flare can be debilitating and putting you in the hospital. I've seen all the above. We obviously want to prevent these as much as possible. So how do we know if a flare is coming on? Well, number one, let's go back to that. Some people will have flares that are predictable. If your flares are predictable in cycles, we need to look at what's going through these life cycles. Certain spores, certain microbes, certain parasites that may be going through these life cycles with you, where you know every season, once a month or every 2 months, I get these flares no matter what I do. Or are your flares totally random? That's the first thing we have to look at. Some other things you'll notice to predict a flare are the obvious ones, right? We'll see your GI symptoms starting to increase. So maybe you're getting more constipated, a little bit looser stools, you're having more bloating. That's the obvious stuff. I don't need to tell you that. You know when those are coming on. But there may be some more or less obvious signs. There are things that are associated with GI distress that may help you predict the flare is coming on. So these are going to be things like fatigue. Well, why? Your body will always divert resources to the things it needs most vital to life to help you stay alive, number one. Number two, to heal you from illness or wounds. Number three, everything extracurricular. So sex hormones, hair, skin, nails, those types of things. But keeping you healthy, drop my marker, keeping you healthy is going to be number one. And so if you're finding you're more fatigued, a lot of that energy your body could be putting into, simply put, could be putting into the rest of your body to get you moving, the mitochondrial function, the nutrients and vitamins and things you need to have high energy. It could be going into healing you instead. It's very taxing on your body. You'll notice even when you have the flu, you're down and you're tired and you're exhausted because your body's diverting those resources. So if you're feeling fatigue coming on, it could be an early sign your body is right now diverting something to an illness you don't yet have symptoms of. It's like, you know, you've got the flu coming on, got a little lump in the throat, you're a little bit tired, but you're not down yet. Jump on top of it. And so we know that could be one of them. Another common symptom that we'll see can come with that fatigue is also going to be brain fog. If you're finding your brain is just not firing super well, you're a little bit lethargic, it's taking you a bit to think about things, any kind of brain fog, your lapses in memory, it could be a sign a flare might be around the corner. Something else you'll see as well, let's add this to GI symptoms, is going to be some food sensitivities. If you're finding that your food sensitivities are totally random, that's okay too. But if you're finding your symptoms are kind of up and down, it's like, wait a minute, I was eating chicken really well last week. This week, I'm eating it and it's getting worse and I'm feeling worse and I'm feeling worse. There might be a sign of flares coming on because your immune system is ramping up its reactions. And when your immune system ramps up, that's filling your cup. It's about to overflow. This is where you get these flares. So if you're finding any kind of immune reaction, maybe you're a bit more irritable or you're having poor sleep. Maybe you're getting anxiety, some depression. If you're finding any of these symptoms ramping up, it could be a sign that a flare is coming. Also, we'll see some people who have parasites, say, at their root cause. I'm talking, we've seen 3 and 4 foot worms coming out of people, so they're very real. Sometimes parasites, they'll actually be more active at night. They'll eat your melatonin. That comes into the system. They're more active. You're up in the night constantly. You're waking up 2 to 4 a.m. It could be something else at the root that's stimulated by this melatonin that can cause some of these responses. Another one, if we're looking at, let's talk about your skin. If you're finding that flares up, you got more hives, more itching, more reactions, eczema, psoriasis can be paired with some of these root causes that can be driving your IBD. And as your body increases reactions, increases these immune responses, now it's on your skin, it's coming outside of your body, maybe your acne's flaring up, it's a sign your cup is filling up. When that cup fills up, it overflows, you enter a flare. Look for eye irritation, different changes in smell or worsened smells, darkened urine, smellier urine, stool starting to smell worse, your bowels starting to change, or even joint pain, stiffness, almost like you're not draining fluid. Maybe you got some fatness in the hands, these feel a little bit thicker. It could be your lymphatics, which can be a sign your immune system again is ramping up. These can be early warning signs that a flare is coming on. And so we talked so far, giving you lots of information about how you get IBD. We basically broke it down in about 5 or 8 minutes on how IBD even happens, how we get it, how it's growing, that it's not autoimmune. This handy little chart that I brought up here to show you, if you're on the podcast, I'll put a link to this in the notes, but this can show you that these antibodies are present, these yellow boxes. These show you where the antibodies can come from, not just from IBD. And so the whole logical fallacy that IBD is a random genetic autoimmune condition, it doesn't actually stand up to the stats. And we look at it from a different lens. We just say, wait a minute, what if? And then if your body, your gut really is being attacked, is your body actually attacking your own tissues? Or is it attacking your microbiome and your tissues are simply caught in the crossfire? This is the next consideration that I want you to make. So let's talk about reversal, okay? We know inflammation is never random. Your body is always reacting to something. That's the fundamentals of inflammation. It's like, if you went out and cut your hand on something, right? And you got an infection in your hand, you know the infection isn't there because you have autoimmune handyitis. You know you have that because there's something in there your body's trying to heal you from. We have to consider this as being the same for inside your intestines. And so it's always a reaction. The root cause is simply your body overflowing. And so your symptoms progress, the disease progresses as that cup overflows and you can't get rid of the overflow. This will continue, the water will get into other places causing more disease. So let's talk about that for a minute. Let's say inside your intestines, this is going to be your bowel, boop, boop, doo, 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 and here's your small intestine. Let's say inside here you have all these toxins building up. Right near where the large and small intestine like to connect, we tend to see things like parasites might connect in here. We also know 90-ish% of all your gut bacteria in your large intestine is actually sitting right in the same area here as well. So let's consider you have an overgrowth of microbes that maybe shouldn't be there. You got some backflow inside these valves now, the small and large, call it the ileocecal valve. They're not working. Parasites are hanging out. There's inflammation there. There's a lot of bacteria there causing a problem. You now have fecal microbes coming from the large intestine, getting into the small intestine. So you have toxins exiting where they should be, going to other places. On top of that, we have leaky gut. So let's take some of your cells, either large or small. Let's blow them up. Let's look at this. So your cells should be held together with these little things called gap junctions. I picture it like almost like a quilt knitted together. Then what happens is those stitches start to spread and fray apart. Normally, things would have to go through the membranes to pass from your gut into your bloodstream and lymphatic system. But as those leaks starts to happen, guess what? Those toxins enter illegally through a giant hole in the wall where they should not be coming in, and in they go, starting to cause problems. They get everywhere. They get to your brain, your lungs, your joints. This causes more immune reaction. This is really what I mean when your cup overflows and then the overflow goes other places. It gets everywhere. It gets in the body. Everything's wet. Everything's sick. This brings us back to a very simple concept that we call the 5 R's. Now, everyone's going to look different. And I really should say we're going to call it D in the 5 R's. And the reason we say that is because we talked about your cup being overflowed, right? We have to drain that cup. This is going to start to clear things out. Your drainage pathways, very simply put, is your liver, your lungs, your sinuses, your skin, bile ducts, gallbladder. You're going to get your bowels, your ureters, or bladder and kidneys. This is how things move around or exit the body. Lymphatics, even blood, transport stuff. And if these are junked up, you're not actually draining things and they're not getting out of the body. Detoxing is collecting the trash. Drainage is bringing it to the curb. And if you are collecting all your trash and storing it around your house, you're still going to be toxic. It's going to get stuck into fat cells and muscle cells and nerve cells, and you'll still be very sick effectively. On the other hand, if you can actually get it out of the body through a drainage pathway, it's no longer clogging things up. And now you can feel better. And that's what we have to look at. And so the number 1 D we're going to use is going to be drainage. But remember, we said your body can't randomly react. It can't just be inflamed out of the blue. It has to be reacting to something. And if your body is attacking your microbiome and your gut tissues are just caught in the crossfire, there's something in there causing a problem. Imagine this for a minute. You go to your doctor and you stepped on a nail and that nail stuck in your foot. And your doctor looks at that nail and goes, wow, that is really infected. It's probably really painful, but it's just part of your DNA. It's just part of your body now. There's nothing we can do. The best we can do is give you numbing cream for the pain, use it for the rest of your life. And then if it gets really bad and flares up, we'll manage it as we go. And if worse comes to worse, we'll just cut your foot off. That would be insane, for lack of a better word. But then you go to your doctor with a bowel issue. They go, yep, nothing we can do. I know it's really bad, but it's just part of your DNA. Nothing we can do about it. And as flares come up, we'll manage it with some pain management. In worst case scenario, we'll cut your organ out. That should be just as insane to us, but it's not, because we're so accustomed to this. There's a reason 6 out of 10 North Americans have a chronic condition, regardless of spending the most money per capita in the world on healthcare. The top 3 industries are health insurance, pharmaceuticals, and hospital stay, making 18% of the entire country's GDP, or gross domestic product, the amount of money they make. It's $4.7 trillion just in health. 3 biggest industries. And so, I hate to say it, but a patient cared is a customer lost, really. But we have to consider, if we just simply take the same information and turn it a different way and see it from a different angle, we can see things very differently. And so this is what we have to consider. That nail is not just part of your foot. It's not part of your DNA. This infection, 99% chance in my experience, is not just part of your DNA. I have seen true autoimmunity, which again turns up and turns down, but we can turn it way down. And there's a better chance you're not autoimmune. So that means it could be reversed. But it's reacting to something. So the first R is to remove the problem. Now everyone's R's are going to be in a different order, but I'm giving you the basic outline. So drainage, we have to be able to get things out of the body. That way we can remove the problem, because you can't evict tenants from the building if the doors are locked. So they're trying to get out, give them a way out, and then begin removing them. That's number one. Number two, your body's going to be drained. We have to replenish. That's going to be your nutrients, macronutrients, micronutrients, vitamins and minerals, and all these little nutrients your body uses, amino acids, proper nutrition. Because, again, your cup, it's overflowed. Your body is using all these resources to try to clean up the water. The best analogy I can use, especially in your inflamed state you're experiencing right now, picture you live on an acreage and you have well water. You have just enough water to bathe, shower, do your dishes, cook, clean. That's all the water you have. The well empties and the next day it fills back up. Picture your nutrients the same. They empty and they fill, empty and fill. The challenge we have to look at here is that you're inflamed. Your house is on fire. How much more water do you need than what's in your well? Way more. You no longer have your basic daily maintenance to do your showers, your laundry, your cooking, your cleaning. You don't have enough water. You have to go to other wells. It starts drawing things from your teeth, your hair, hormones. It'll pull other nutrients from other places and prioritize the fire right now in your gut that you've had for the last year, 10, 20 years. You're going to be depleted, so we have to replenish. And this is where we can get back into next, the other two R's. We just replenished, so we're going to begin to rebuild the microbiome and, of course, repair the tissues inside of your intestines because they're inflamed. Your house is on fire. We have to rebuild it if you want to go back to living. So we have to rebuild and repair. And then, of course, this gets to our rejuvenate, which is rejuvenating the immune system, not boosting. You'll boost imbalances. Rejuvenate means balance. And so this is a basic process on how to do that, but everyone's going to be different. For example, parasites are a very common root cause or driver of someone's bowel disease. We see it all the time, and it could be a driver for yours. I got 10 different people taking the exact same parasite products in 15 different ways because their body is different. We have to look at this for you as well. And so when it comes down to it, there's a lot of steps and stages that we can use to ultimately reverse your IBD, but know that it's reversible. And here's a quick recap of what we've done so far. We've shown you just even the stats from the British Medical Journal, the CDC. It's not just an autoimmune condition, unquestionably. It's more likely that it's not autoimmune. It's not unknown. We're seeing cases climb. Something is causing it. We have a good idea. Just some people deny that pesticides and toxins and these things are bad for you, that fast food is even bad for you. We know it's killing us. In fact, we can still see hunter-gatherer societies today who do not have these same issues, but we do. That's number two. Number three, genetics. North America is less than 5% of the global population who has more than 50% of the world's cases of bowel disease. It cannot be genetic. Something is driving it that we're doing here that they're not doing in other countries. That's what we have to look at instead. This way we can get to the root instead of band-aiding it. We know why you flare, because your cup overflows. And if a flare is coming on, you see these non-GI related symptoms. And then ultimately reversing the IBD, the D and 5 Rs. This is the process, but everyone's going to be different. And I want to invite you to do this right now because I know this information coming out can frustrate people. You might be really pissed off. You might be enlightened. You might be excited. But I want you to know that there's hope. We can just start with a simple conversation. At this stage right now, there's one word between you and getting the help that you need. If you're watching on YouTube, check the links below because we're going to have that information down there. We have a question from Anne-Marie. If mainly the terminal ileum is affected, is there a specific cause you lean toward? Yes and no. So that's a great question. So we talked about there, Anne-Marie's question, we talk about the large and the small intestine. And when the large and small intestine connect, this is where we tend to see a lot of the issues being rooted. I will say yes and no, because again, a lot of microbes are there and a problem. We see a lot of SIBO conditions. That's SIBO, stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. What happens, you get a backflow of fecal microbes coming into the small intestine causing a problem. And so this can be caused by a lot of things. Maybe it's a parasite root, maybe it's a fungal issue, could be E. coli, it could be a lot of different things. So I won't say that's primarily an issue based on where it is. However, something I am working on, I need more data. I've only got maybe 100 cases to sort of figure out right now, is what drugs you're taking and what treatments you're responding to, what it might correlate to being some of your roots. That's an experiment I'm thinking about, but we don't have anything on paper yet to answer that question. From Carrie, we have a question. Do you treat pediatric patients similar to adult patients? So all of the clients that we see, we've had children coming in who are months old. It's really, really hard to watch, like kids, like babies. We've had children 2, 3, 5 years old come in to see us before with their parents who just can't get around and walk around. Yes, we treat them the same, but their bodies are very different. A lot of the processes and protocols are going to need to be applied accordingly. Also, kids have trouble swallowing pills, so we might use different protocols and supplements. And their bodies, and a lot of times, for example, mold. Adults can be a lot harder to detox from mold. Kids need a little bit of support sometimes. It can often be removed from the environment and maybe bounce back. So they're going to be different accordingly, just like any other medical practice might be. But we got kids at very young ages, all the way to teens and adults and seniors. So there's a lot of that for sure. While we're getting more questions here on the Facebook, do you have any questions on the Instagram? Amazing, very good. All right, guys, any questions here, I want you to drop them in the chat. And while we're waiting for those last ones to come in, I just want to encourage you, if you're here on the live, Instagram, Facebook, comment the word solution. If you're on YouTube or the podcast, check the links below, because we can book in a call directly from there and have a chat with myself, my team, just figure out, can we get you the help that you need to finally reverse this disease? Because the truth is, it doesn't have to be forever. If you're like, you know what, man, I don't know yet, send me an email. You send it to josh@gutsolution.ca. That's gutsolution, all singular.ca for Canada. josh@gutsolution.ca. If you just want more resources, just want some help, start up a conversation for now just to learn more. We'll make sure we get you access to those other channels and places we have that information. That's all we got for you for tonight. Thank you so much for coming. It's been a pleasure. We'll see you next week. If the information you've heard here today is just really starting to spark some thoughts to say, wait a minute, what if there's more to this? What if it's not this permanent, lifelong condition like I've been told? And I want to invite you to check the links in the show notes below, or send me an email with the address I just gave you. The whole purpose of this show is to prove that there's so much more that could be done about IBD, and that your doctor is frankly wrong. I want to give you the tools and resources you need to be able to fix this thing for good and take back the life you deserve. We have so many resources for you: our Facebook group, our YouTube channel, this podcast, and of course, courses working with us directly. Check the links in the show notes below to make sure that you can get the help that you need.